paper, but it wasn't good enough for him, you know, because if the word Velikovsky's in there, he's a scared little mouse. And to me, that makes him a bitch. You know, and how are you going to do all that ayahuasca and still be a bitch? Buddy knows what I'm talking about. Once you've done enough stuff that you can see all the code, you shouldn't be afraid of fucking shit. Fucking gangbanger can roll up and be like, yo, shawty, give me them shoes, and be like, fuck, you're getting my shoes. Get out of here before you go to jail for life, you know? Once you've seen the code and shit, you shouldn't be scared of nothing. So the fact that he was scared of being Velikovsky tells me he just wants to be famous. Yep. And that, like I say, that I reckon that makes him a bitch. I'm not saying that it means that he's a terrible person.
No, I didn't say that either.
Plenty of male bitches are good people, but they're just bitches. That's all I know. And I don't truck with that anymore. And Randall Carlson disappointed me because he promised he would look through it, and once he got it, he never replied to it because it meant that. And then later he joins the Electric Universe stuff, not the Thunderbolts, but Randall Carlson later starts doing Electric Thunderbolt stuff. 2 or 3 years after I'd sent him my paper. But you know, he doesn't have the time to do exactly what he said he would do. I mean, he gave me the 3 papers that I referred to. I cited in that paper. So as far as I'm concerned, plasmaglyphs, that plasmaglyphs paper is still head and shoulders above everything that's out there, except for maybe Eduardo Cardona. And then it goes from there. You know, it's evolved from there to a mountain that they can't handle. They can't handle. And that's okay. You know, there's nothing says Hancock can't get into heaven just because he put his head in the sand. But you see, what would he have done later when he got to the addendum? He would have been fine in addendum 2, but or in the Prattian Thunderbolts paper. But then when he got to addendum 2 and saw the data on the cosmic eggs and saw that we had a previous star, and he tried to wrap his head around the 3-body problem and the gas giants circulating each other and us being tossed about and causing the frost giants and fire giants and all this changes in climate. If he'd have seen that, he'd have run for the hills because it would have challenged everything he thought. A comet. I mean, come on, man. How's a comet going to selectively kill just large animals? That doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, it's just ignorance. So, you know, I didn't watch the Hancock thing because I don't trust him or this Flint character. But of the two who are talking about archaeology, the Flint character is the one who's going to know everything about it. It's like, I don't really see why that it's just not a proper debate. It's not the right guys, you know, and the same. And Rogan has a habit of doing that. He mixes and matches people that really aren't on the same level. Eric Weinstein and Terrence Howard are not even remotely on the same level. But anyway, I'm not that grouchy, by the way. I've already been on a walk, moved my chi, and sweated.
No, that wasn't a grouchy reply, Ramon. I didn't consider that grouchy at all.
Okay, just in case it sounded like I was grumping. I'm not grumpy.
No, you weren't grumping. You were just saying what you've experienced.
It's just what I call real talk.
That's right.
You know.
So anyway, let's see what Buddy might have.
Well, let me say one more thing.
I did start recording this too, just to let you know, Ramon.
Yeah. I'll just say one more thing. Graham Hancock, he does travel places, yep. But does he have anything as hard hitting as when I went to?
No, we've lost.
Did I get lost there?
Yeah, we did lose you.
I said, Graham Hancock has gone a lot of places, but does he have anything as hard hitting as me just casually going to Shiprock, picking up a chunk of that limestone and chiseling away very easily at what's underneath the breccia that's supposedly 27 million years old? And the answer is no. He doesn't have anything that hard hitting. And that was just casual. I was just making a little video that I turned into an animation that's in one of my papers. You know, that's me on a Tuesday. You know, and then the same thing can be said for Terrence. Does he have anything as hard hitting as what Buddy's done? No is the answer. So those who know and who connect to the filament, they'll find the source. They'll find good stuff, like the real shit. They'll get to the marrow and the bone, not just the meat.
Amen. That's true. But Terrence is onto some really cool things with his geometries and his sculptures.
Well, of course. I mean, I could go out and study gravity and Newtonian mechanics. I'd be on some good things. It just wouldn't be the source. You know, Newtonian mechanics is a lot of fun. It's got some crazy things and motion, the laws of motion. All that's crazy, but it's just not the source of the stuff. It just isn't. It's the wonderful effects, which there are an endless supply of. You know, there's an endless supply of. And that's what you've shown. There's probably, as from what you could tell, a probable infinite set of these geometries of rearranging form.
Yeah.
And he wants there to be 16 named after him. Come on, man. That's clown world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, people get stuck inside of numbers. People get stuck in all sorts of different places. It's strange. I mean, at one time we believed there was one God. You know, at a lot of different times we believed that there's a lot of different gods. But ultimately, I think it's hard for us to start poking at infinity, because it's counterintuitive for our nature, because it makes us it's insanity. Trying to ponder on infinity is, like staring into the abyss, staring out into the vast cosmos. I mean, the imagination, just let your imagination run wild, and not be afraid of anything out there. And then to start putting it together, or even having the blessed option or opportunity to be able to start putting some of it together, even if it's just bits and pieces. A lot of people think that the one little thing that they discovered is the entirety of the grand unified theory. I think there's a tree down in front of me. It looks like, uh-oh. I got to get the maps up real quick. So, I mean, let's try to figure out the ethics and the moral code of the deep thinkers that go over the edge and seep out the boundaries, and the cutting edge thinkers are usually the artists, and the artists are depicting it for who knows how many hundreds of thousands of years, until someone who might be what they call left brain thinker or whatever comes along and does the science of it, and then says, hey man, this is like the cosmos. This is how the cosmos works. And then I remember a conversation we had a while ago that is on these similar boundaries is that during any type of I didn't even put my address in. I'm just going down a dirt road. Hang on 1 second. How we view
Oh, looks like we lost him. He's going down a gravel road. So.
Coverage. Evening, guys.
Oh, hello.
How are you, Rob? So, just fill Rob in quickly on where we've been to and where we're heading. Ramon.
Problems. Good luck.
Well, we were just talking about the new Terrence Howard video. I wasn't personally, but Andy brought it up. I had some things to say about those situations where you put people who aren't, at the same level into a so-called debate, and then there's no standards, and it kind of goes. But Buddy was on talking about the fractals and such. There he's back. He's back.
Hey guys.
Somebody was talking about the fractals and the artists and the scientists and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, coming from an artist perspective of someone who went through what's going on and how I see it through my lens and how I understand that eyes have seen through eyes throughout history. Like I have had eyes looking through my eyes to try to get to be able to peek at my artwork. I felt other people's eyes. I don't know if it was in history. It felt like it was ancient, like how prophets see over prophets, see over prophets. Artists work along that dimensionality where they're describing things and showing off truths. I think I'm supposed to take a left here. I lost my direction. Yes. And similarly, get out of the way. Oh my gosh, this black squirrel. We tend to look at God in the universe as our technology changes, whatever technology we're dealing with, we view God in the universe in the same means. And that's what is starting to become a reoccurring understanding.
Buddy, that was a pretty profound assertion, which you either need to clarify or back up, because I don't think anybody's going to know what the hell you're talking about.
I think that technology, whatever technology we're dealing with at the current time, whether it's hand tools and or whether it's hand tools and we're carving ancient buildings and things like that, or it's the technology, or it's the Iron Age. God was depicted in a chariot, oftentimes, because the chariot was the technology of the time. It wasn't an automobile; it was the horse-drawn wagon, and God inside the chariot, or God and the angels, or then another technology would be in the technological revolution or industrial revolution, where we started to see everything as a mechanistic universe. And it's not just God, it's the universe. We tend to have a mimicry that's happening. It's a philosophical type of mimicry that's happening, where what our hands are building and what's around us that we see, and we start noticing it, then we start comparing the greater cosmos to that type of analogy. Like in the industrial age, like I just said, God was a mechanistic God. Like the universe was like a mechanical the universe must work in a mechanical type of manner. And then we hit the electric age, and we're like, God must work in like an electrical type of manner, because we see this, and it opens up new eyes or new lenses, new horizons. And then, and this has been happening for a long time, ever since the plasma days and the plasma pioneers on the frontier, bringing in the electric universe. Now, get the universe as fractal. That's one way to look at it. Then the whole thing makes a lot more sense once you put on the eyes and the vision. So it's about how many goggles, how many lenses are you able to look at the universe in? You're able to look at it in a mathematical way. You're able to look at it in a mechanistic way, even in a philosophical way. You got Machiavellian way you could look at reality in. So that's the thing about your worldview or your Umwelt. How many lenses can you blend your palette of reality or your vision with, and be able to not be in conflict with the ideas, even though contradictions are presented in the ideas that say that they might not go along together. Because I see truths in a lot of different religions. I see truths in a lot of different sciences, but somewhere we get lost in the fact that they like to stand out and be independent, or the only way to God, or the only science, or follow the science, or you know, we have constant ability to change these perceptions. What's going to happen with AI? You know, when the black and white of right and wrong blend into the general color palette of all the different grays, and perceptions of how you can view reality. Understanding general relativity and relativity is amazing. Reading Einstein is incredible, but just because he's they've started a cult behind him, and it seemed like it stopped the electric universe for a time being, or stopped other theories that were going on at the time. Doesn't mean it's not incredible to study and learn about it. Same with other philosophies. But I think that my general point is that whatever technology you're working with at any time, right now, we think the universe is a simulation because we're building computers and everything is simulated right now. Walter Russell predicted this in his work, in the 40s and 50s, or even before. That everything is a simulation. Reality, everything was seeming to be something, seeming to be an extension of the motion of matter extending outward off of the fulcrum of stillness. So you can put the lens on of Luciferianism, and Lucifer was born out of Christianity, or so they go to say. So they're thankful for that, and that, you know, and you can go view the world in any of these realities, and we're going to believe that God in the universe is AI because AI is the next major technology that we're going into. And as we believe that, are we going to start believing in an AI universe? And as we be inch closer and closer towards understanding and believing a simulated universe, I don't know. Simulation theory is hard, and it seems like Russell was one of the main first people talking about how this is all a simulation. All motion, all matter, everything is all a simulation of a series of like film, like one picture after another picture.
I've got a comment on this. You can't just stuff your head through with all these weird ideas. The only reason for looking at any of this material at all is to say, is what's being speculated justified by the evidence that is available to us? In the case of Einstein, we look at the mathematical evidence of his speculation, and it doesn't stand up. The mathematics is not correct. So therefore, the speculation and what follows from it is not a valid interpretation of the universe. When we come to religious philosophies, what we have is a series of beliefs where there is some commonality, like it's a bad idea to go around killing people just because, versus, you know, going around and assisting people in need, which is also common to a lot of religious speculation. Lucifer was first described in the Jewish religion. It's common to that genre, but the idea of a personification of evil is not strictly Jewish. It has occurred in all the religions, including the pan religions that occurred for Greece and Rome, Egypt, and pretty much everywhere else all over the world. So the question you've got to ask in this thinking, the only reason for looking at it is to see where did the thinking and our understanding go wrong. And if we can show that it's gone wrong, then it's job done. We don't need to continue to perpetrate the idea that it's valid anymore. We know that the universe does not revolve around the Earth. We know the Earth is not a flat disc. So people who are coming out stating these things as dogmatic truth are frauds. They're lying to us. And it's not acceptable.
They're not. They're a lot of.
No, I'm not even going to. No, I'm going to say that.
One at a time.
The issue here is that these people are deliberately lying. Right? They're producing a slander against God himself. That's a blasphemy. And if they're doing it against the spirit, they're screwed. Because, you know, the universe is not going to tolerate falsehood being wrapped up in lies. You can't do this. What we need is a system of ethical behavior. You can go around and say, oh, the universe behaves like a simulation, or it's an AI system, or whatever you want. It's a human make it up story. The question is what's being claimed correct? Does the universe behave that way? And for the universe to be a simulation, it's well beyond human understanding in information technology. The AI systems we have out there cannot be switched on and learn for themselves. They can't do it. They're not thinking. They can't understand the world in the manner we do, which means they are missing something fundamental that's required for what we would term as artificial learning.
They're missing a bunch of things.
Right? So artificial intelligence is just a tool that looks fancy that's being used to control us. And if you listen to Al Beck, who claimed to have gone to the year 3749, the environment of that environment was, the political system was managed by artificial intelligence on crystal computers that if you went anywhere near, you got bacon fried. They were that radioactive. So, you know, was what he said and claimed true? He's not the only one who's been to the future, who's lived in that utopian environment, which was not successful. It was degrading. It was successful for a long period of time, but it doesn't have the things that are needed for people to go out there and strive to learn. And life is about striving to learn. And if you stuff it up, well, there's an immediate response. Do we only get to do it once? Unlikely. Where is the essence of ourselves being actually stored? And the answer is it's not inside the biological body, it's outside of the biological body. It's retained. So, and that is common to all the religions that are out there. You know, when you die, you're going to have to give an account to yourself. And it's not just a Judeo-Christian Islamic idea. It's fundamental to the Egyptian religion that existed 3,000-4,000 years ago. It's common, way more common than people realise. So we've got to be careful what we shove in our brains, and we can't just stick it in there without putting a filter of, is this reasonable? Does it stand up? Is there evidence? Is there an alternative way of understanding? And I know I've criticised the fundamentals of electrodynamics. There are two. There's Millikan's experiment that did not measure the value of positive electric charge due to the proton. You've got the Cavendish experiment that claims to have proved gravity when it looks like it's an angular momentum conservation experiment.
Yeah, Robert, you've covered that like at least 20 episodes.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but this is the issue. The issue is our understanding correct?
But Robert, it's Buddy's turn. My reply to you would be: there's a whole bunch of devil's advocate I could have just played on what you said. Buddy, it's your turn.
I think that it's extremely human and natural for us to not know. And that's the curiosity and the mysteriousness of life and the mysteries. It's fun being an investigator. I think it's even funner being a discoverer. And discovery is one of the highest emotions. I would say one of the heights of emotions, as far as I'm concerned, going through the gamut of them. There's nothing like being able to just look at something and know what it is, and hear people talk about it all the time, or at least your own interpretation of what it is, or discovering a fundamental theory or theorem. But I don't know, going back to the geometry and into the infinite sea of the universe of the Doherty sets. It's a wellspring of life, and the more you go into the living dynamics of how light works a beam of light, to take it from Einstein, instead of riding on a beam of light, imagine being in the beam of light and being able to see all the intricate patterns of everything and how it's all held together, in this hearth of love, surrounded by a central source, and that there's a way to get there. A way to get there, and a solid way to get there, and a solid way to get back. And that this geometry came from the creator through me out of nowhere in 2003 was absolute, just completely, I would say electric, solar, I don't know, the core, like the source, to be able to be a scribe of the source, and to reveal this in a manner that people are going to play with in a fun, playful manner, is going to be super fun. And that's what I plan on doing with it. Getting it in the hands of the people and having people play with it and discover new things and how things correlate. And yeah, I don't know. I have a blast with it. I know other people will have a blast with it. If I've been having such a blast with it, it's a fun game.
All right. So, Robert, my response to some of your assertions would be that everybody might agree doesn't make it so. So, for example, there's two famous illustrations. Of course, the most famous is the elephant in the cave paradox, with the blind philosophers. But if everybody saw a UFO, but none of them saw that the Blue Angels were in town, they're all going to be convinced that they saw an actual UFO. And that doesn't make it so. But my favorite story is more of a chain of assumption that humans do. This is an allegory. It may have actually happened. Who knows? There's a young daughter and her mother are making a ham. And when they get done, the mother cuts off the ends of the ham, and the daughter naturally goes, "Well, what step does that serve?" Expecting that something about the cooking of the glaze over the ends of the ham enhances the. She says, "Well, that's just the way it's done." She said, "But why is it done that way?" Because I don't know. Ask your grandma. That's just the way it's done. So she goes to grandma, and grandma's like, listening to her and answering her questions very patiently, and then finally just says, "Honey, that is just the way that ham is cooked. It's the way it's always been cooked." And it's not satisfactory to the granddaughter. So she finally says, "Honey, just call up your great grandma and ask her." So she takes the time, goes to see great grandma, and gets her talking about making the ham. And when she gets to the end talking about chopping up the ham, great grandma goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she says, "Yeah." So at the end, grandma and mom always cut the end off the ham. She goes, "Oh, well, that's because we used to have a really small pan and the ham wouldn't fit in. So I'd have to cut off the ends in order to make it fit in the pan every year." And the point is that, just because it was done one way doesn't mean that it's the way. And just because it was the observation made at the time doesn't make it the observation. In 1848, spectroscopy occurs and the sun becomes a ball of burning hydrogen gas. But that isn't actually what it is. It's a usable model to a degree, but that's just not what it is. Black holes are not objects that suck everything in and nothing escapes. It's just not what they are. So the problem I have, Robert, with what you're saying is that I want there to be an ethos where that everything that is right or wrong is knowable.
And I speculate that it's there as a ethos field. And I postulate with philosophies based on that fact. I derive philosophical math equations to describe these kinds of ideas. I make the Carryoga conventions to be both culturally relative, but also stringently whimsical. But that doesn't mean that that's actually an objective reality, that it is totally true. And the Orientals have known this for many thousands of years. In a lot of ways, they are a lot more adult than we are. They don't have a set of ideals that guide and restrict everyday behavior. It makes their ethics extremely fuzzy. Do they generally understand that killing is wrong? Sure, they've got laws against it. They understand the rule of law is useful for a society, and they've understood it a long time. They had magistrates back in the day. But of course, everybody was bribable. Everything was art of war, and it was all kind of shape-shifty. Of course, if they understood if you cross a line, you might get yourself, reprisals, revenge killings, etc. So there's something, I agree, fundamental to the nature of people to react to what they perceive as injustice or wrongness. But there's still nothing objective that we've found concrete in an equation or a fundamental thermodynamic version of the law of causation and conservation, and in their interaction between the heaven and the mountain trigrams that determines that the deterministic is supreme. The relativistic is still always there. It's like arguing between laminar and turbulent. They're both part of the system. As soon as you have things that grow for themselves, you have parasites. But you can't have parasites if you don't have things that grow for themselves. And that's the problem with the polarities. In order to have justice and ethics, you also have to have injustice, and you have to have unethical behavior and unethical even behavior. And that's a very difficult thing for us to reduce the equation and eliminate those variables. I don't think it's even possible. There's nothing in the empiricism that indicates that it can be done, even if it should be done, which we're not even sure if that's true, because we presently have a society that's the most just that's ever lived, that is destroying its own DNA and gene pool through lots of means, both self-destructive and outside destructive and corruptive and pollutive, toxic, and of course, just the sheer camaraderie of looking at the situation going where the smartest people aren't breeding, and the dumbest, fattest people are breeding like crazy, which would sort of potentially undermine the idea that a civilized society is the ideal society. And that may be exactly what the Mayans found out first. And it could be the Egyptians too. It was so long ago that we wouldn't even know. We just don't have anything that is objective to support the assertions that you're making, which makes them fundamentally faith-based. And that's not wrong, but it's just not, in my opinion, the scientific method. Whether or not the scientific method can rule humanity and actually lead us to some kind of correct behavior and longevity that you would see in like the Sami people, who had a 3,000-year culture that's still extant, I don't know. Maybe we should ask the Sami people how they do it and stop doing it the way that we're doing it. But I suspect that they won't be building any rockets to Mars. Anyways, that's my reply.
So, Ramon, further to that, he put that article out this morning. It was this morning, my time. So that was the one. I want to go back and list dozens of ways carbon-based life is under attack or hated. and the propaganda against carbon on this planet. So would you like to go on that one and where that sort of came from?
Yes and no. I can generally declassify the way that I came to that research as fictional hyperdimensional alien does research on who hates carbon and then produces real results. Fortunately, my clients are here, so I'll leave it to you guys to go through who the heck this Swedish guy is. Does he really hate humanity and life code, or is he the victim of the continued Malthusian and Darwinian degradation of the late 1800s, which led to a generalized despiritual dehumanization of humanity that basically was epitomized in a twisted version of Darwin's theory by the end of the 1800s, which was collinearly occurring with the rise of the quantum mechanics. And I'll leave that for Robert because that's his area, his history of expertise. I just know that I was surprised to learn the guy's name and then a sort of year that we can point to and start digging up where these anti-carbon, crazy, life-hating people have gotten their ideas. And that's assuming that he's the beginning and not the middle.
These problems in thinking really go back to the 1800s, the mid-1800s. Nietzsche and other philosophers that arose in Germany and Central Europe. The problem here is that we're suffering a corruption of social morality, a corruption of critical thinking. And yes, it's deliberate because those who want to control the world, their enemy is the light of truth, those who can think for themselves, etc. So if they're able to throw out what is actually known to work and claim some other false thing that is shown to be wrong, then they're succeeding in removing the ability of people to actually think. And we're seeing this in the modern age right now with the media and what's being stated. You know, the media is driving stories to an agenda which is meant to make people fearful, to make people desire some strong man to come in and clean up everything. And, you know, the magic bullet, the savior on a white horse, whatever you want to call him. And we've seen these people arise in the past that have claimed to be a savior, and they've just led everybody who believed in them down the black sewer of dead. And this is the aim of those that go down this path. They want to corrupt and destroy life. That's because they're obeying and following a person who wants to destroy everything that's been created because he hates the being that created it that bad that he wants to destroy everything. He thinks he should be in charge. And this is where the Luciferian, the personification of evil, comes from. So we've got an obligation to actually learn the history, not just go listen to someone's opinion about something, which is why I tend to be very harsh about the things we fail to do. If we're going to go back and say, if the claims being made by somebody in science, if they're being made, is there evidence to back up what they're saying as being valid? You know, do we have the supporting evidence? Terence Howard, he might be great as an actor, possibly, even though there's an opinion that he isn't. Is what he's saying truthful? Is his understanding correct? Can we go out there and perform experiments to show that what he's saying is correct? And a lot of people who have been criticising Terence have been criticising his claims as not being valid, not standing up to scrutiny. And the response by Terence is not reasonable. He's saying, oh, everybody's picking on me. Well, no, they're not picking on Terence, the person. They applaud the fact that he wants to go out there and understand, but what they're objecting to quite strongly is his refusal to accept the evidence, to understand the evidence, to make the effort to understand the evidence. And this is the sort of stuff I'm saying. Yes, I'm going back into stuff that's, now 200 years old and saying there was a mistake. There is an alternative explanation that gets rid of the assumption. We don't need it. It's like Simon Perrier de Laplace was asked by Napoleon about his stellar formation theory that fell out of favour and now is suddenly back in. He was asked by Napoleon, Napoleon said, why did you not include God? And Laplace's response was, it was a speculation not required. There's a process that could be described and it didn't require God to make it. So that, when we look at religion, God is seen as an organ grinder who's got nothing better to do with his time than to make the monkey, human beings, bounce around on the ground. I think God's got a lot more to deal with than, just one recalcitrant group of life that just refuses to accept the truth about what is really going on, who want to corrupt stuff, the people who desire power over others. And when we understand that this is the fundamental desire, even in this group, if you had the capacity to make things, to understand everything as it is and then do things, what would stop you from just ruining people's lives because you knew the truth? That, I struggle with this myself. You look at the environment and you say, these actions are unacceptable, so I'm going to step in and stop it. Well, who says I've got the right to do that? If I do that, I'm interfering with people's right to be evil bastards and suffer the consequences of it. It's not my job to do it. God created this universe as it's so claimed. And if it's up to him to sort out the problems that he's created. We've just got to try and figure out what the hell's going on. We're at school for our entire life until we get dead and rejoin and then come back again and have another go because we didn't quite get it right the last time. The only way we're going to understand things is we're limited. We can't just click our fingers like Bruce Nolan and just bang, there it is. It's all done. That requires no understanding at all. So if you could do anything, you'll never learn. Whereas if you can't do everything, you're forced to learn. And it's a crappy process, really, because none of us like it. Nobody likes having their shortcomings shown up to everybody else, to the embarrassment of us. We've got to learn to be mature, and the world at the moment is just an angry teen with a gun, and that's not good. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave the philosophy for the now. So I'm just exhorting people to, we've got to make an effort. And Terence needs to make an effort to understand what he's understanding. People who think they're right all the time need to understand that they're never right. Everybody has gone down that path, it's ended up in the pit of you're wrong.
Well, Rob, on that, what I was listening to before with Eric Weinstein and Terence on Joe Rogan, it's basically, I've got to take my hat off to Eric Weinstein, right? Stein, I think it's pronounced. He actually was doing a very good job because he never went in to cut him to pieces. He just kept explaining to him and going back, like you've said with things, of why we're at and where we're going. And Terence would come up with, yeah, but I've got an actual thing. And then Eric would go through it, break it down, and with all different formulas and that have been developed over the years. And gradually, where I'd got to now, one of what's his name's claims was, yeah, but I was able to patent these. And Eric was saying to him, really doesn't mean nothing, right, in the real thing. So, like what the work Buddy's done in that, what Eric's saying is, yes, you're out here, right, but it's not really explaining how you got to that point. You know, like, how, you know, so what the physics is about is explaining why and how that is what it is, right? So, to me, what I've listened to so far, after listening to the first one, it's been quite good because it's not someone chopping him to pieces. It's someone trying to explain to him. Now, whether what he takes from it, I don't know. But it's someone trying to explain to him about how he could advance, and some of the metaphors that he's got that he possibly needs to drop from what he's doing. So that was my take on that.
So, I haven't gotten that far, I don't think.
The issue here is, are we prepared to accept the evidence that we're wrong? Are we prepared to say that our understanding needs refinement? Because that is when you've shown that you're learning things, and it's common in the religions that we look at. You know, the wisdom comes from failure, and recognizing that the reason why you failed was your understanding didn't work correctly, and you need to change your behavior and your understanding, which is, you know, fundamentally what the religions are trying to do. Is they're trying to teach everybody to be self-disciplining, to be moderate in their own behavior. And sometimes you've got to be fairly strong about standing against stuff that is wrong, that can be demonstrated as wrong. And we can't just tolerate the continuation of the propagation of stuff that is shown to be not the case, not to be true. So those that want to get, we shouldn't be tolerating the publication of the flat earth theory as real and true. We shouldn't be tolerating the Ptolemaic astronomy model because it's been shown not true. And modern cosmology is another model that's been shown not to be true. Einstein has been shown by multiple people not to be true. And the people who continue to promote these untrue speculations are committing a fraud on all of us. It's, you know, if you want to make money as a fiction writer or a science fiction writer, then, you know, be upfront about it. J.K. Rowling became wealthy because she wrote a fantasy story that everybody happened to like. Is her view of the world of Harry Potter real? No. But she's never claimed that it was. She was describing in a fantasy world the common problems of our society. If you look at it, you see bigotedness and all the rest of it that goes with it. The only difference is the bigotry is between in the group that are able to do magic. They're the ones that are having to deal with bigotry, and it's just as real in that environment as it is for the rest. And that is common to our world. We've got bigoted people. We've got people who think that it's okay to upset people's lives, take their property without any compensation whatsoever because of whatever dreamed up reason they want to have. That think it's okay to be impolite on the road and cut people off and cause accidents and then complain about the fact that they get a ticket or go to jail or whatever else, that they have to suffer a consequence because they haven't behaved in a manner respectful to other people. And that's fundamentally our problem. It's been our problem for as long as there have been human beings on the planet. Was Adam and Eve a real event and real story? Who knows? It's claimed, it's a Sumerian legend. It's a legend that's common across cultures that are ancient. So maybe there is something in the past, but did they understand what happened in the past correctly? Or have they just, embellished it? When the flood happened and the earth catastrophes came along, the natural response is to say, well, the world was filled with evil people and God dealt with them, as opposed to, well, the earth went through cataclysm change because of what happened that transformed us from being a satellite of Saturn into a satellite of the sun, and all the stuff that went with it. God might not have had anything to do with it, and to blame God for something he didn't do is not reasonable. Does God cause the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the tidal waves? Is that God's doing? Or is it these are events that occur because that's what happens in the natural world? These events will occur because the laws of physics say if it can happen, it will happen. And is the response blaming it on God reasonable when we human beings may have been or should have been aware and catered for it and not built our homes where a tsunami would destroy us, or been on a volcano and then complain about it when it erupts, or be in an area where it's earthquake and build nuclear reactors and then whinge about it when nature takes its course, or fail to build an electrical system that will withstand what the sun will do to us. We know better. We actually know how to design and build these things correctly. We could have energy systems that are free energy, but people who want to make a profit are not the slightest bit interested in anybody having free energy or having enough food to eat or a house to live in or whatever other things that people need. They want to make profit out of somebody else's misery. And that is, if that behavior was imposed upon those who think that way, they'd be all upset and bent out of shape that they're the ones that are victimized.
Hey, Bubba. 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 Where's
Anyway.
my Bubba?
So, what do we do? I think the answer is we have to grow up and accept responsibility for the fact that we are the very people we're complaining about ourselves personally in our own lives. And we've got to stop trying to hide it. We've got to try and change ourselves. Because if we don't, the universe is going to impose upon us. Those rules are fundamental. They're built in. And we've had thousands and thousands of years to understand that those are the rules, because every time we step out of line, the universe comes along and crushes us. So that's my personal view on it. And if we're not prepared to take the effort to learn and understand and refuse to even examine the evidence and look at it correctly, then we deserve what's coming. I'll leave it open to others.
Yep, no worries there, Rob. Looks like Nick's dropped off. Buddy's gone quiet. Ramon's gone quiet. Yeah, no, a lot of it runs on, but like I say, I was listening to that before, Terence and that, and I do think behind the scenes there's a lot going on of what you're talking about, Rob. There's still a lot of new learning and that occurring, but I often get the feeling that the other side of it, because of its dramatics, tends to get more recognition, press, etc., especially in the public spheres. So what's happened is you like have little satellite groups, but the communication between them all is probably not the best. That's possibly by design too. So yeah. So anyway, that's where we're at to. So on that, we'll stop the recording.